Hey, we are in Sefer Yehoshua in the beginning of Perek Hey. Last time we discussed why there was a mask circumcision. Very popular. Got good, a lot of views over there. Question is now, why is Mila on the eighth day? We're going to discuss circumcision. Why is it specifically on the eighth day? Over 10 answers. Try to say it over very briefly. Number one, the pasuk says, "So b'yom hashmini yimol basar alasa." He circumcised the flesh of your foreskin on the eighth day. Number two, a knife in Hebrew means a sakin or ismal. Those are the Hebrew words. Ismal, if you break down the word, Azmal. The gematria of Az, numerical value of Az, is 8. On the eighth mal, that's when you perform the circumcision. That's when you do the Mila. Number two, another interesting remez, an allusion, a hint, is that when the baby is brought into the room, the mole announces, Baruch haba, blessed is the one that's coming. The gematria, numerical value of the word haba, is also 8. That's what the Avujam explains. The source for having a suda, another reason, or a meal by the bris, is a pasuk in Bereshis. V'yigadel hayeled v'yigamel. Vayas, this is in Chaf Al Ches. Avram mishtagadol b'yom higamel etz Yitzchak. The word higamel could be broken down hag mal. Hag refers to 8, is the numerical value of 8. So 8 on the eighth day, mal. That's when you should perform the Mila. All of this is. You should also see Tosfos on Shabbos on Lamed Aleph, Lamed Aleph. Also, the Gemara, another answer, the Gemara in Megillah points out over here on Yud Zayin Amud Beis that the bracha of Rifa'inu and Shmona Esrei that has to do with healing is the eighth bracha. Right? Mila is referred to as Briso Shel Avram Avinu, the covenant of Avram, our forefather. Avram had 10 tests, says it in Pirkei Avos, in the fifth parak, as well as the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer and Parach Tes. What was the eighth test? Mila. This is all in the Sefer Bris Mila on page 52. Those are very nice, interesting allusions and ideas, but what is a deeper understanding, actually? Not just an illusion, not just a gematria over here. Before we go to that, another brief point is that you have 8 strands of tzitzis, 8 days of Hanukkah. There's a lot of 8. The Maharal, well-known Maharal, commonly gets quoted. The number 8 has significance. It's above nature. The work week, the week, excuse me, is 7 days. It's 7, but it's above nature, 8. Now let's talk about a deeper idea over here. Why on the eighth day? So there's a Devarim Rabbah in Vav Aleph that explains that Hashem had mercy on the child and waited until he had koyach, until he had strength. What does this mean? This is actually subject to an argument. According to the Or Chaim HaKadosh in Vayikra on Yud Beis Gimel, he quotes a Zohar who says that this refers to spiritual strength. Before the Mila, before the circumcision is performed, the baby has to live through one Shabbos. This Shabbos will cause the baby to be spiritually elevated and thus ready for the circumcision. Similarly, there's a Medrash in the Vayikra Rabbah as well on Chav Zayin Yud that says that a king said, anyone who wants to visit me has to first visit the queen. The same applies to males. Any male who wants to enter into an everlasting covenant with Hashem has to first greet the Shabbos queen. According to now, that is one idea. It should be pointed out also that Avelus mourning is a duration of 7 days. It's a 7 day period. We're mourning over the loss of Torah that this baby went through. Because when he was born, he lost Torah and he gets smacked over there. We discussed it in the past, many reasons. I'll link over there exactly the sheer as to why baby forgets the Torah and what's the point of teaching the baby in general if he's just going to forget it. But the idea is it's a mourning period. So therefore, the eighth day, the eighth, is already after the mourning period. But a deeper idea is that the Shabbos helps. And also it gives them they talk about in the Neshama Yisayir, the extra soul, also linked that. That was also a very popular shir, at least for me, at least right now in my life. But anyways, so that's that idea. Now, according to Rambam, this strength that the Medrash is talking about is a physical strength. Shabbos has the ability to stabilize and solidify all creations, just like it did on the first Shabbos after the 6 initial days of creation. The Rambam writes that all living things are tender in the first week of life. This is in the Moreh Nevuchim and Gimel Mem Tes. Only after 7 days could the child enjoy the light of the world, so to say. He's therefore required to have the circumcision, meaning the baby is frail and tender in the first week of life. Hashem waited until the eighth day for the baby to be physically strong enough to go through the circumcision process. We would have thought that even after 8 days, no, it's not the smartest idea to perform even a small surgical procedure on a newborn baby. The fact of the matter is that circumcision has an extremely small complication rate. Rabbi Yonasan Goldberg points out, and all of this I got from a website. I'm going to link it down below. Actually, someone told me this idea, and then I looked it up, or else I never look at these sorts of things. Rabbi Yonasan Goldberg points out in his book Sanctity and Science: Insights into the Practice of Mila Mitzitza, a study in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1990, the year that I was born, the secular year, reported that a complication rate of 0.19% when circumcision is performed by a physician, by a doctor. However, when performed by a mohel, a Jewish person who is expertly trained in the practice of ritual circumcision, the rate falls to 0.13%, or in other words, a little bit over 1 in 1,000 babies that there's a complication. And even when a complication happens, it's usually excessive bleeding, which is easily correctable. No other surgical procedure could boast such high figures for complication-free operations. Amazing. Tangentially, the aforementioned study reaffirms what Jews have known for centuries and for a very long time, that working with a Jewish mohel rather than a surgeon is a wise choice. The accumulated experience of hundreds of generations of Jewish mohels grants a clear advantage when it comes to dealing with possible complications, and also the broad practical experience that they have in quick and relatively painless brism, the circumcisions. In addition, there are some halachic questions regarding some of the clamps and other tools that surgeons and doctors also use. Rabbi Zamir Cohen, in The Coming of the Revolution, suggests another understanding of this statement made by the Midrash, that to strengthen the eighth day, based on modern discoveries about blood clotting. We know that there are two major clotting agents in the blood, and they are, I might be pronouncing this wrong, I apologize. My wife will be very upset with me because she's in the medical field, but prothrobium, prothoramin, and vitamin K, and prothoramin and vitamin K. Dr. Ahmed James Quick, the former head of the Department of Biochemistry at Marquette University in Wisconsin, I could also be pronouncing that wrong, and a specialist in blood research, noted that during the few days after birth, the amount of blood clotting agents is so small that even a small cut could easily endanger the infant's life. Amazingly, however, by the eighth day of life, this prothrombin levels not only reaches their norm, but they actually surpass it, and it makes it possible to perform circumcision without fear of excessive bleeding. So we see how the Torah, or Hashem, instructed us to wait to circumcise our children until the eighth day, aka the exact time when the infant's blood clotting is at its peak, a full 3,200 years before science or scientists knew about blood clotting. Amazing idea. Like I said, link will be in the description to that. Last answer, Ubayoim Hashvini Yimol Basar Aloso. It says that you should circumcise the flesh of your foreskin on the eighth day. This is a explicit pasuk of Vayikra Yud Beis Gimel. Why is the Torah currently discussing Mila after the fact that Mila was already discussed in Parshas Lech Lecha earlier in Bereshis Yud Zayin Yud Beis? Why the repetition? The Gemara in Nido and Lamed Aleph relates that the students, the Talmidim of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, were coming right out of Lag BaOmer. Said, see the playlist on Lag BaOmer for more details. Link over there. Why? And the main, yeah. Okay. So, main idea is, of course, why are we happy on Lag BaOmer after the fact that 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died and they were all dead? So why are we rejoicing? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died on that day also. Okay. Many answers. So the students, they asked Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai why the Torah requires that Mila should be performed specifically on the eighth day. He answered that if Mila will be performed before the eighth day, then all of the attendants at the bris would be very happy. However, the parents, they would be sad because they're prohibited to be with one another physically. So, that's what's discussed in the beginning of Parshas Yikra. She's going to be impure for a duration of 7 days. So therefore, since parents would be in a state of sorrow, the Torah therefore ruled that a bris is performed on the eighth day in order that the parents will also be happy. Now the Or HaChaim explains this is why the Or HaChaim over there on that pasuk on Yud Beis Gimel explains that this is why the Torah repeated Milah circumcision in order to prove and explain why Milah is on the eighth day. My Greek grandfather Nachlasvi over there explains a beautiful idea based on this on page Reish Pay, that the Torah repeats and mentions this commandment of Mila after the laws of an impure woman in order to teach us this point, that the juxtaposition between circumcision and the impurity of a woman teaches us that that's why the Mila is performed on the eighth day, and that's why the Torah needs to repeat it another time. One question, why can't we just perform Mila on the ninth day? According to this, the answer is reason Makdim mitzvahs. We want to be quick to perform mitzvahs, as the Gemara in Psachim says on Daf Daled. See you next time.